Welcome to People and Profit. The summer break is over and we're getting back to work with France's business community at the annual meeting of the Employers' Federation Medef. Coming up in the show, the spectre of Brexit hangs over French companies. We'll hear from the Scottish minister who's come here to tell them that his country will remain open to EU investment. The economy is growing and employers are feeling good. So what do business groups like Medef want from the pro-business president Emmanuel Macron? And where does the worker factor into discussions among company bosses? We'll hear from one trade union. It's a good time to be running a business in France. Growth has returned, confidence is high, and the government's taking steps to boost enterprise. But global events are weighing on French entrepreneurs' minds. Trade disputes are a big concern, and Brexit is only months away. We've been asking those attending the Medef conference about the biggest issues facing them and their businesses.
My main worry is that the government's promises won't be kept and that there will be change in plans on payroll taxes and that we'll see a series of new charges all over again.
We need for Europe to guarantee that we are able to help our startups, to guarantee to work together between Europeans on an European level, to guarantee that we are able to not be just crash in the middle between GAFA and Chinese.
Basically, we are worried by the trade barriers that are appearing all around the world, especially in the US, and all the consequences, because when you have trade negotiations worldwide, the basic rule is reciprocity, and is going to affect all the business, even in Europe, I think.
On Brexit, we're not very optimistic. We're watching what's happening very closely. We want the rules to be fixed so they'll be clear and permanent and allow the international traders that we represent to continue to function. We're being careful. We're not feeling very reassured.
Well, among those who've come to the Medef gathering to talk about this issue is Scotland's Minister with responsibility for Brexit, Michael Russell. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Nice to be here.
Why have you come to speak to French businesses?
Well, I think for two reasons. One is Brexit is a hot topic. I think I always discover, because I spend a lot of time in European capitals, that it's a hotter topic in Scotland than the rest of the UK, and it often is now in Paris or Berlin or even Brussels, so Brussels is focused on it. So it's to remind people that Scotland didn't vote for Brexit, Scotland's opposed to Brexit, but it's also to say to people we're open for business. No matter what happens, we have a very long historical relationship. We've worked well with France for generations. We have a lot of French inward investment. France takes a lot of Scottish produce. We cooperate, for example, in renewable energy. So in all those things, we are working together. And it is to say, let's do more.
And are you worried that in whatever Brexit scenario turns out that you could lose some of that investment?
Inevitably, there will be difficulties with the relationship because people don't know what's going to happen. I've been talking to people here who say to me, is there going to be a hard Brexit? Is there going to be a no-deal Brexit? Is it going to be a soft Brexit? People don't know. Now, it's bad enough if you're a business in Edinburgh or Glasgow or Oban that doesn't know. It must be even more difficult if you're an exporter to the UK and you're not sure what's going to happen after next March. So there is a risk. I want to put a human face on Scotland to say to people, you know, we are there and we'll work with you. And it's to make sure there isn't interruption. Far from exiting, we want to intensify the relationship. Scotland didn't vote to leave. Scotland is against leaving. That's quite clear. The Scottish Government believes that membership of the EU is the right thing to have. If we don't have that, then membership of the single market and the customs union is essential. So we are putting our case and putting it vigorously.
Are you worried about jobs?
Oh yes, of course. There are two worries. One is that we don't have enough people for certain parts of the economy, and that's particularly true in rural Scotland, but it's also true in other sectors. In our university sector, we have 5 of the world's top 200 universities in Scotland. It's a unique thing. 25% of research staff in Scottish universities come from other EU countries. We have a big dependence in certain sectors of the economy. For example, in our abattoir sector, 98% of the staff are European. So we really do need people coming into it. Scotland needs to have migration. But there's also a threat to jobs in terms of the overall performance of the economy.
What do you think the chances are now of a no-deal Brexit?
I think it could become a self-fulfilling prophecy, the way in which the UK government has started to use it as a stick to beat the extreme Brexiteers, but now it appears to have a life of its own. So, that would be, in our view, disastrous, and that's something we say a great deal.
What sort of reassurances can the Scottish Government offer to those businesses that trade or operate in Scotland?
A number of things. A very well-educated workforce, one of the best educated countries in Europe. A supportive regime from the government, and a stable government. I mean, we've been in government now for over 11 years, but it's a stable situation. And also a focus on new technology and innovation. But it's also a great place for food and drink. France is the #1 European destination for whisky. I represent a whisky-producing area. I am eternally grateful to France's good taste and also thirst for whisky. So we are saying to people, look, there's lots of good things in Scotland, keep buying them.
Despite Brexit?
Despite Brexit, because whatever happens, and we will continue to oppose what's taking place, whatever happens, we're open for business.
For many years, this event was characterised by business leaders calling on the French government to do more to help them. Now, under President Emmanuel Macron, bosses do have less to complain about, although there are still some points of contention. Meanwhile, trade disputes pose a major risk to French companies. I've been talking about these issues to Fabrice de Sachet from Medef.
We fundamentally believe in multilateralism. Even if we accuse globalization of many bad things, in recent decades, trade has allowed millions of people to be lifted out of poverty. It's a way to collectively make people richer. Some corrections need to be made, particularly in terms of competition. The taxation of digital giants, environmental and labor standards in certain countries, since we have very high standards in Europe. Like on carbon pricing, we have multilateralism that works in Europe, but we must correct certain weaknesses we've noticed in recent years.
Surveys of French company bosses say that business confidence is high, but there are some big political issues on the way for them, reforms of things like unemployment benefit and pensions. Where does Medef stand on this?
There are some major issues like unemployment benefits. Medef has a simple position, which is that we negotiated an agreement with social partners in February. If we're putting issues back on the table, we must look at everything and study all options so that unemployment insurance is sustainably funded. Beyond that, there's the issue of getting the unemployed back to work. We can't be happy with a jobless rate of 9.1%, which isn't falling. On pensions, it's the same thing. We must ensure the system is balanced. We have clear principles on this, including, for example, that €1 paid in should give the same rights to everyone. There are currently more than 40 pension regimes. We need to simplify and rationalize, because social welfare in France is the biggest item of public spending.
Does having a pro-business government like the current one help Medef in what you're arguing for?
The first measures announced by the Macron government, and in particular executive orders for simplifying hiring and making the labour market more flexible and reducing the tax on capital, these were positive steps which make France more competitive. We're not ideologues at Medef. We want things that work, and we're falling behind our European neighbours.
This is primarily a gathering of business people, but there are some trade unions that have been invited to take part in the discussions as well. So how is the role of the worker being considered here at the Medef conference? I asked Marjorie Alexandre from the Force Ouvrière Union.
The message we came here for was to say that collective bargaining is still important in this country. It's been about more than a year that collective bargaining has been attacked. We are not consulted anymore about the subjects. And what we want to say here is that we don't need that the government summons us to come to them. To negotiate and to get to collective agreements.
What sort of reception have you gotten from members of Medef that you've been speaking to?
what is at stake here is to clearly understand that Medef's objective is not to defend the employees' interests. Their role is to defend the enterprise, the company's interests. But we have common interests, is to make this economic environment live.
What's changed in your work since Emmanuel Macron was elected? He holds himself up to be a pro-business president. Does that make your job more difficult?
In fact, what is the main problem, actually, since about a year, is that the government refuses to listen to us. So what we want the government to do is to meet with us, is to hear us, but most of all to listen to what we have to propose. We have some propositions to make. We are not only here to contest.
There are two important reforms happening in France at the moment, one about the reform of the unemployment benefits and another about reform of pensions. What's your position going into those negotiations?
What is important to us is to secure what is working, what has been working for years now. The insurance system, we are attached to it as to the apple of our eyes since we created it. And it was created 70 years ago. It has proven its efficiency. So if the government wants to say, okay, what is at stake now is the objective is to destroy unemployment insurance, then it won't be a subject of discussion for us. If there are things to improve and we have propositions to make about this, then we can discuss. About the pensions, for the moment, we don't have any concrete elements about the reform.
Well, that's it from us at the Medef conference for this year. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you'll find our Facebook page at France 24 Business, or you can tweet me at NewStephen. Until next time, thanks for watching.